Well, Andy gave me this great assignment that was going to be called the Paris issue of Interview in August. And Andy said, oh, Andre, you're the fashion editor, you're going to interview Karl Lagerfeld. I'd never met Karl Lagerfeld, but I knew who he was. And so I took that assignment and I read everything I could about Karl before I went up to the interview on a Sunday afternoon. Andy, Bob, Fred, Antonio Lopez, and Juan Ramos and I went up to the Plaza Suite where Mr. Lagerfeld was. It was the first time I ever met him. It was in May. And we sat down and we did the interview, and Antonio sketched us as we were talking. You can see this in interviews archives. And after the interview, and I didn't ask him anything frivolous, I said, well, tell me about the 18th century in Versailles. Tell me about the furniture. I knew everything he had loved, and he was so impressed with my knowledge, my questions, as I am with you, the unexpected surprise with Tawny and Wendy. At the end of the interview, we became close friends. At the end of the interview, we're all sitting there having tea at the Plaza Alternate, the Plaza Hotel on the 5th Avenue. And Karl says, come here, darling, come with me in my room. And it's 5 o'clock, and I'm thinking, why should I go with him in his bedroom? What does he want? I thought, oh, here we go, in the bedroom. Uh-oh. I tried to be sophisticated, and I thought, okay, I'm getting ready to ward off the hands. Because people always have this idea, stereotype, that the black man's body is something to be explored. So I walk into the room gingerly, and I stand up, and there are these Goya trunks. And he opens one of the trunks, and he starts throwing silk shirts and scarves. Here, darling, take this. This will look good on you. Because I was tall and skinny. This will look good on you. My old shirts, I have them made in Hilbert Key. They're custom made. Take this. This will look good on you. Take it. And he gave me these silk shirts. There was one pink and one green and the matching mufflers. And I had those in May. And in August, when I got my job at Women's Wear Daily, I wore these shirts almost every other day to work. Mr. Fairchild couldn't understand why I was wearing Karl Lagerfeld's toss-off Hilbert Key shirts and mufflers to work with Fruit of the Loom t-shirts.
With Fruit of the Loom t-shirts, Andre.
And Mr. Mr. Fairchild was so impressed. Well, where did you get these shirts? I said, Mr. Lagerfeld gave them to me. But that was in May. I was in Women's Wear in September. And Mr. Fairchild was so impressed that I had these shirts that I wore. And when I got the job at Women's Wear, I didn't think I was going to get the job. Marion McAvoy moved to Paris, and they said, come over and interview. Carrie Donovan called me and says, Andre, get over to Women's Wear Daily because there's an opening. Marion McAvoy is going to Paris. And this was in 1975. I said, oh, they'll never hire me. I said, why do they want to go there? Never. I walked over there because it was 2 streets over from the factory where Warhol's factory was. Women's Wear Daily was on 12th Street. And I walked in there on a Friday, and Monday I started work.
Wow. And you worked, and boy, did you work. All the way to Paris. Yes. All the way to Paris.
By the time I got to Paris, Karl Lagerfeld was a very good friend.
And I saw that he would send you daily notes and...
Oh, yeah, it's letters. Nobody had faxes then. Notes were shipped over express.
Wow.
Handwritten notes, letters, beautiful stationery. By the time I got to Paris on that day in January, with 13 pieces of unmatched luggage, cheap luggage, Walmarts and Cresses and stuff, I put my luggage down on the Hotel Lenox, which was 5 doors down from Karl Lagerfeld's apartment on the Rue de l'Université, and met him at La Coupole. No, we walked into La Coupole together because I went to his house. We took a taxi to La Coupole. And there we swanned into La Coupole, but his entourage was waiting. And on the other side of the room was the Saint Laurent entourage with Eric de Rothschild, Lulu La Falaise, Betty Catrou, and there was Karl's group, Antonio, Anna Piaget, and the black models. I can't remember who's her name. Beautiful black models, maybe Carol Labrie, maybe it wasn't Carol Labrie. Anina Wasuma. Oh, Anina Wasuma. It was just fabulous. And Eric de Rothschild kept saying to me, oh, Andre, you could be a Rothschild. You're so grand. You're more Rothschild than I am. And that's not in the book either.
That is not in the book. Do tell.
He says, you're more Rothschild than I am. What a compliment.
You know, Andre, it's so interesting to me because I circled that in the book when I got there. And guys, I promise we're going to move on, but I just need to know. What was that like? I mean, on your first night in Paris, you show up with mismatched luggage and everything.
Mismatched clothes, everything is mismatched.
Clothes, all of that.
Pollyanna-esque. scrapping up.
Here you are with Yves Saint Laurent and Karl Lagerfeld hosting your welcome party, and they were rivals, and they didn't acknowledge each other much at dinner, and there you were in the middle. I would love to have been a fly in that wall. Tell us about that.
So Carl's dinner was for me over at the La Coupole, but Yves just happened to be there coincidentally. Yves wasn't part of that group. They just happened to go there because that then was the place to go for dinner at La Coupole.
Okay.
Everyone went to La Coupole. It still exists, but it was the place to go.
Yeah.
For steak tartare and everything. So it was for me a world, it was sort of like going down the rabbit hole. I felt that it was amazing, but I was afraid. I was homesick. I missed New York. I felt afraid. I didn't call home every week to my grandmother. I called when I was at work because you couldn't afford the long distance call, but I would call when I was at the office. So I was afraid, but I knew that that was in a world that was special. And that I had earned a place in the world. When I sat on the front row of Yves Saint Laurent's my first ever couture show in January of 1978, and those clothes came in front of me, I'm on the front row next to John Fairchild, and I thought, okay, this is where I should belong.
Yes.
And how did I get here? Because I'm smart.
Yes. You said in the book that...
Now wait, and let's go back to the book. Will you please look at the opening of the book? There's a letter from Deanna Vreeland.
Yes, I saw.
And that is describing, and by the spring of that year, she's describing my beautiful collections by Saint Laurent, Paloma. She sent me a letter that I kept, and I had it printed in the book. This was a moment. This is my great moment. This is my zenith.
Well, you said that in 1978 is that you were speaking about the couture collection that you went to see. And Saint Laurent had told you that that show was inspired by Porgy and Bess and his interpretation of Black life and style in the segregated South. And I can't imagine what it was like for a man like you who had actually lived this life to now see it on the runway.
Being uplifted and being artistically embrace in the master's hand of the master of couture at that time. To suddenly see these clothes come out, Kierat, Munya, the way they walk with the attitude of the leading singers of Porgy and Bess. I could not believe it, and the music and the clothes, it all just merged into one great, beautiful feast.
I just can't get over that part of the book, but I'm putting myself in your shoes, right? It's one thing for an artist like Saint Laurent to interpret it. You had lived this life.
Yes.
And that was incredible to me. So you write this amazing review.
Yes. And this is the best review of my life. Because when I wrote that review, I went home to the office and sat on a telex. They had telex machines. You banged out on a telex machine. It made so much noise. And I remember just banging and banging and banging and banging and banging and banging. I didn't write it from notes. I just went and just banged and banged and banged. And Mr. Fairchild, he wrote it. It was the cover of page 1 of the Women's Wear Daily, and he thought it was brilliant. And so did Deanna Vreeland.
Yeah.
That was when I was 27 years old, I think. This was a moment, and then my career for me, I felt that was a moment of achievement. And then there was Betty Catrou talking to me every morning in the Hotel Lenox. She would call me up every morning without fail. Talley, how are you? How are you? What are you doing today? I'm off to my dance class. See you later, Talley. I'm going to get an Yves Saint Laurent thing. I'm going to wear to a dinner tonight. Talley, are you going to Valentina's dinner for its perfume? Talley, who did you see? I had all these great women who were very concerned about my welfare. Françoise de Lorenta was very concerned in New York. Yeah. She called me every day when I was in New York. Betty Catrou would call me in Paris. And you see that in the photo, excuse me for coughing, ladies and gentlemen.
It's okay, Andre.
There's a photograph in the book where there's Betty Catrou, Lulu, and Eve walking in the streets of New York. I took that photograph. I love that picture. And that book is the whole page in the book. And I captured the essence of the Saint Laurent style of the 70s. There's Betty Catrou, who has an exhibit of her clothing on view in Paris at the Saint Laurent Foundation right now.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, you know what? In the book, you said that after you wrote that amazing review, and as you said, it was the most amazing review of your career. Betty said you'd become the king of Paris almost overnight. Yes. And you were lauded and you were loved, you know, and you said, this is what I had dreamed of. but I had never dared to believe.
Yeah, I dreamed about it. I didn't think it would happen to me.
I had arrived in a place where I was accepted, where I now belonged. My Blackness was not important. What mattered was that I was smart. Mm-hmm. I walked alone in those first moments, never showing how insecure I really felt.
Exactly, exactly.
You know, and I thought that that was remarkable, you know, remarkably revealing, because outwardly, you were this poised gentleman, girded in beautiful suits, and all of your knowledge, but inside something else.
Clothes were my armor. They protected me from the battle wounds.
Yes.
I never showed security. I always held my head up. I was taught to sit up straight. Clothes were indeed my armor of warfare.
Yes.
And that's how I got through life.
Yes. But you know something, you also speak in the book about the enormous pressure that you carried, being the only one, the only Black man, the only one of your sort, you know, sitting on the front row. But you also felt wonderful in that, but you also felt the pressure not to fuck it up. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tell us about what that felt like.
Well, I just did that. I felt that I had to get up and prove. I had to represent. I couldn't fail. Failure was not an option.
Never an option. I'm with you on that. But that's incredible pressure to carry, you know.
I didn't feel pressured. I didn't think about it as pressure. I just felt that failure was not an option. Okay. I was living my life. I was having the best time in 1978. Okay. Picasso got married, and that was a great moment. Mm-hmm. I just felt that I couldn't let people down. So many people have believed in me. Deanna Vreeland, I could not let Deanna Vreeland down, or Mr. Fairchild. Yes. These people I could not let down. And the pressure for me was just to get up and to go forth into the day and to represent my people, my culture, my smartness, and earn my place in the world.
You know, Andre, you talk about the Black models and the Battle of Versailles having happened before you arrived in Paris. And you talk about going to the Givenchy show. You talk about all of the Black models, you know, not being something strange. And you went to the Givenchy show and you were shocked that Givenchy used all Black models. I have somebody very, very special here, another friend, here to join us now, Miss Beth Ann Hardison.
Hi, darling.
You turn your mic on. The Battle of Versailles had happened. You guys, can you turn on Miss Beth Ann's microphone so we can hear her? Those of you who don't know Beth Ann should know her. She is mentioned in this book, and she is absolutely wonderful. Another dear friend of André's. She's well known as being the first high-profile Black model after her appearance in 1973 in the Battle of Versailles show. Robin Givon is also in this chat tonight, and she wrote the book about the Battle of Versailles. Hello, Beth Ann. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to hear Andre go on and on about so many wonderful things. His mind is just mind-blowing.
Hi, darling.
You know, this is a wonderful surprise and friend, but I asked Miss Beth Ann not only to come in and listen, but I thought I'd bring her in to say hello and tell us about that time in Paris for Black models.
Well, it was interesting, but first, before I do that, I have to say to Andre that I'm still smelling the sheets. And because my grand aunt used to do the same thing, but when he described that, that was very true. That the boiling and all that was wonderful, and then he got me over to the anvil, and that changed everything.
Right. I see your pearls. I'm clutching your pearls, Miss Beth Ann.
But he did take me up to Miss Vreeland's house when he had to go and do something for her, and I had to sit right in her little foyer there. Oh. Remember that, Andre? So long. That you remember. Yeah. You remember everything.
Of course I do. I got elephantine memory. God, please don't let me get Alzheimer's, please.
No. Your memory is incredible.
Everything that he does have, but in listening to him, he's such a great storyteller. That's the one thing. You know, he didn't experience that experience that I experienced in Versailles, but the opportunity then was really great because when he speaks of Halston and Joe Eula, and those are the moments that all of the designers from America came together. And it was Francois Delorenta. I always give her the credit for it all, even though, you know, Ellen Lambert was the one who initiated the idea, but it was because of the connection that Francois Delarenta had with the French elites. And so, yes, we had that great experience to be those girls. But I always have to remind people, it wasn't that it was an all-black show of girls. It wasn't. It was just about 10 or 12 of us, most max. But it was just the fact that the European designers had never really seen a show presented that way. First of all, it was 2 hour. It was 2 hour benefit that the sets weren't made properly because Joe Euler thought it was in inches and it was centimeters. So the sets didn't work. So many things went wrong for us that wind up being to our advantage. Yeah. So the simplicity of having the girls on the stage, simplicity of just having that wonderful Miss Thompson giving us, Liza Minnelli, and the simplicity of the choreography and the music. And the designers had never seen, the French designers had never seen any presentation like that. They had never done shows with music. They'd never seen these girls with the way we walk. They weren't used to that. And it was such a wonderful thing. There's a picture that I have of me and Andre. It always reminds me, since I've known Andre since he started to work at Interview as receptionist, but I didn't know him. I told him, I always remind Andre, seeing him when I first saw him, and he was in the Eagle Scouts, I call it, the shorts. He always wore shorts that came to his knee. And it was a
shorts and tall socks.
Eagle Scout uniform. That's what he used to wear. And it was such a cool idea. I said, who is that guy? But the idea of what happened with Versailles was a very unique thing. So it seemed like a big thing at the moment. And then once it was over for us. But then it was great that it was discovered and people found out about it and, sort of like dug it up after 30 years and then all of a sudden made people very aware of it. So many things from documentaries have been done on it now. Of course, Robin Givon's book, things like that. So it's been really wonderful in that way.
Wonderful.
Alba, Netflix is working on a project to make that into a Netflix series or something.
Oh, I cannot wait.
Yes, I know that because they told one of my people who were trying to talk to me about doing something. They said, we don't want to work on your thing because we're working on a Versailles thing based on Robin Givon's book.
Yes, what it is, what they did is they bought the rights to Robin's book to do an actual narrative. The narrative is not serious, it's a full feature. Well, it'll be a series, I guess, but it's a full feature, should be a full feature film. And it was to be directed and written by Ava DuVernay. Amazing. I just don't know if Ava will ever get the chance to ever do it because she's so busy with many things and then COVID and we won't know if she'll finish it, but she's trying to finish it, get it finished by the end of this year.
Well, Robin is here and she's listening in. I'm trying to see if we can get her on video. But Miss Beth Ann, I cannot thank you enough with blessing us.
Thank you, Beth Ann.
And thank you.
You see, you can tell he's my brother. You see how he said, thank you, Beth Ann. Well, we have lots to share, Andre. I came down to the city on Sunday, so I just want you to know I need to talk.
All right, darling. You got to come. If you can drive up here and come sit on the porch.
I could. I could do it. You know why? I'll do it. I'm going to stay a little longer because I have to now. So I will do it. I'll take a day and I'll get the driver to drive me up.
Oh, come up and sit on the porch and we'll have lunch and sit on the porch and talk. Okay.
Oh, I love it.
But we'll talk before that because
we're going to talk before that, darling. Oh, you at home now? You at home?
I'm in the apartment.
Okay, darling.
Thank you, Abba. You're a very good interviewer. I want to tell
you. You're an excellent interviewer.
Thank you.
You really are. You're really good. I wish people luck. I hope some people get some chance to eat some dinner because y'all ain't getting out of here for a long time.
No, we're not going anywhere. There's more to come, Andre. Thank you, Ms.
Thank you, everybody, for being so supportive of me and my brother, Andre.
Yes, thank you. God bless
you. And your role is more important than ever these days, Ms. Beth Ann. So keep it up with your activism and all the work that you're doing. We love you.
Thank you so much. I'm determined.
Okay, you take care.
Thank you.
So, Andre, don't kill me. I had to surprise you with friends.
Oh, I love the surprise.
So I have to ask you a question. You wrote this legendary review for Givenchy in Paris, and you were so inspired by what you saw with all of the Black models, not knowing that you had awakened the beast in Pierre Berger. And the Saint Laurent crowd. What happened that led to you leaving Paris?
Well, I didn't know this for years after Mr. Fairchild called me home.
Yes.
Suddenly I was called home. But before I was called home, Mr. Cody, the vice president, who'd been one of my greatest supporters, he was my absolute Mr. Maxwell Perkins for me at Women's Wear, came to the ready-to-wear collections in October and stood in the office and said, "You've got to stop sleeping with all the people, all these fashion designers. We've been told you're sleeping with men and women. All the men and all of them in Paris." And I stood there. I didn't make a scene. I listened. I calmly walked out of the office. I thought it was the most offensive thing. Since then, I realized that this was his threat to me. Pay attention. You're getting too close to all the designers. I mean, can you imagine if I had been in bed with Sonia Rykiel, Claude Montana, Terry Mugler, Karl Lagerfeld, Yves Saint Laurent, Hubert Givenchy? I would have not been able to do my job. I walked out of the office. I went to the Madeleine Church, which is the church where Josephine Baker was funeralized, Melanie Dietrich, and Coco Chanel. It was right around the corner from the office on Rue Cambon. I used to go to their church and light candles and meditate. And so when I ever had a crisis in my life, I didn't have a black church in Paris to go to, I'd go to the Madeleine. Coco Chanel, Dietrich, and Josephine Baker. I was responding to the church because those three famous women had been funeralized, eulogized at the church. It was a very 19th century grand church. I lit a candle, I sat down, I decided to resign. I said, how do I maintain my dignity after listening to that? And people would say, oh, you're so sensitive. Back in those days, you did not have human resources. I could have, Alexis, my friend, said to me, you could have fought to keep that job, but you didn't have human resources. In the 78 or 79, I didn't know about human resources. I just went, I kept it bottled up. I went to a vacation on a weekend with Betty Catrou and her husband, Francois, to Deauville, to Irene and Jean-Amic's fabulous house in Deauville. And I decided to resign. The next Monday, I went in and wrote my letter of resignation, typed it up, walked to the American consulate, extension of the American embassy, had it notarized, took it back to the office and resigned. I kept my dignity. I never regret that. I then moved into Karl Lagerfeld's Royal Louis XV guest suite in his apartment on the Rue de l'Université for 3 months. Everything, food, laundry, spending money was provided by Karl Lagerfeld. And Mr. Fairchild knew I was at Karl Lagerfeld's house. Now, they probably thought that I was sleeping with Karl Lagerfeld. But I want you to know that I never slept with Karl Lagerfeld. I never slept with Hubert Givenchy, Yves Saint Laurent, any designer.
Yeah.
I never had that kind of relationship with Karl Lagerfeld. So this is how you stereotype black men. You can't be friends with these kind of people unless you're having sex. Mm. But all these great men were friends of mine because we shared the same language. And so I lived in Karl's house. We were close friends. And I'm telling you, when I lived in his house, in his best Louis XV suite, red brocade on the walls matching the bedspread, gilt Louis XV bed, beautiful bathroom, servants serving me breakfast in bed. Karl would give me envelopes of spending money to go out and to do what I wanted to do. All the laundry was sent to his famous laundry person. Clothes were immaculately kept. And 3 months, and then when I went back to New York, he paid for ticket for me to go back to New York because in January I decided I got to go back to New York. I got to stay here on your tab for Karl Lagerfeld for the rest of my life. And Mr. Fairchild called one day and said, well, Andre, you just stay in the house and do whatever you want. Write stories. You can write stories and just write fine. I said, no, thank you. I cut it, and I knew I had to cut it. And then the doors opened. Carrie Donovan had me doing freelance work at the New York Times. And by 1983, cut short, because we are running out of time over here, I'm going to cut short. By 1983, I got hired at Vogue as fashion news editor. But in between that, I was doing little things for French Vogue. I was doing little interviews for French Vogue with Arthur Elgort. Mm-hmm. And he had me film once in the back of Karl Lagerfeld's limousine, talking to Karl after a show.
Yeah.
And Grace Mirabella was the editor-in-chief, and she saw that, and that's what convinced her to hire me. And in 1983, I went to Vogue. And by 1988, Anna went to name me creative director.
Okay, so here we are.
Yeah.
We have arrived at Anna, and I know a lot of you have sent me questions. I see you in there asking about Vogue. So Andre, you arrived at Vogue in 1980 first, and the editor,
83.
Grace Marbella did not hire you at that time.
Oh, in 1980, I had the introduction. I had gone to Lieberman, and Lieberman knew that I had been living in Mr. Lagerfeld's house. He says, if you've got to go, you've got a job, if you can convince Grace Marbella. I went downstairs. I knew that wasn't going to happen.
Yes.
So I met with her, and I knew that wasn't going to happen. I walked out. I had no job. But in 1983, she saw this interview that I'd done with Carl in the back of a car,
Yes.
and she hired me.
Amazing. So you guys didn't really know each other at that time when you started, you and Anna.
No, we did not know each other at all.
Saw each other in the hallway when you came out of that interview.
Yeah.
And she immediately sent you a handwritten note by the time you got home that said, "Welcome to Vogue. I'm looking forward to working with you."
Yeah.
You knew, and you say this in your book, that you knew immediately that you had a very powerful and formidable ally.
Yes. Yes.
So, this book isn't really about Anna, it's about you and your life. And I'm curious to know, just once you landed at Vogue, you hit the ground running.
Mm-hmm.
All of these things that you had been prepared for and all the work that you've done, you hit the ground running. What was the environment like? What was the work like when you got to Vogue? Everything you dreamed of since you were a child.
Well, I had dreamed of working with Diana Vriland, and I got that privilege at the Metropolitan Museum. Yeah. When I got to Vogue, it was a world that was very rare, very strictly regimentalized, compartmentalized. Culture of Vogue was very special. Mm-hmm. It was a kind of way of behaving, not necessarily, but there were people at Vogue. There was only one person like me then. It was me. I was the only Black person as a fashion news editor. But in those days, there was Vera Wang, Elizabeth Saltzman, Polly Mellon, Colleen Surf, and Jade Hobson, who was a great fashion editor. And we just, I just did my work. And it was a very wonderful world of excitement. And I was a fashion news editor, and I took my assignments basically from Grace Mirabella. But Anna was always in the back, encouraging me to do things. And we became friends. And I went to her wedding when she married Dr. David Schaffer. I got to the wedding on a weekday, and I thought there would be Mr. Newhouse and Mr. Lieberman and Mr. Newhouse, yeah. Grace Mirabella, Polly Mellon. I was the only person from Vogue except Laurie Schechter, her first assistant. She had two. I think Laurie Schechter was there, and maybe Isabella Blow. But I don't know if Isabella was working for her at that time. Mm. And I was so stunned that we were the only two people there. And Joan Juliet Buck, who of course had been her friend from, British Vogue and all of that. And so this was stunning to me. And I got back to the office, and they said, "How was the wedding?" And I said, "Well, it was wonderful." I had to go into Grace's office and report about the wedding. And so then we would go into the fashion collections in Europe, and we would share cars, Anna and I. And she was creative director. She sat on the front row, but at that time I was on the third row or second row, whatever. And we just became friends, and she got married, and she had her baby. Then she moved to British Vogue, and then she came back to HG. And we worked at HG for, I think, about 9 months. I was creative director and moved up to Vogue in 1988.
So Andre, you got to Vogue and you were assigned some of the most incredible shoots. I mean, you shot with princesses, you shot with, the most important figures and women in the world. Tell us a little bit about some of your most memorable shoots.
My shoots were not, one of my greatest shoots was with my great late friend Ann Bass, who died, I think, in April. Ann Bass was a great patron of the arts, and she was a very wealthy woman. Yeah. She had beautiful homes, and one of my first big shoots was to photograph her house on Park Avenue. And that was just extraordinary, and we became great friends. Yeah. And then her daughter Hyatt had worked for me as an intern at HG. And we became great friends. I mean, she passed away. That was a great loss in my life this year. We went to fashion shows together. John Galliano came to her apartment and made dresses for her in her library where the Picassos were hung, the big Picassos. And she was just great. And then one of my greatest shoots, and Ann Bass arranged that, was to do the Duchess of Beaufort in, what was the name of her castle? The Duchess of Beaufort. There was on Blenheim, but it was a great castle, a great palace, a great spread, an 18th century country house in England. And that was arranged by Ann Bass, who made the introduction. And I spent 3 days or 4 days there. I didn't stay in the house, I stayed in the hotel. It was just extraordinary education about homes. And of course, we did Paloma Picasso's then New York apartment off of Park Avenue. And it was just amazing. I think we would switch. Ann and I would do rotations. She'd go up one day, I'd go up the next. That took about 5 days because they did photograph by horse. And she did her own decor because Paloma had great style. She still has great style. She's a great jewelry designer. And to know Paloma is to know someone special and unique. She had the best clothes. Paloma, like Carolyn Herrera, would always have the clothes that no one else would buy. in a couture. And she loved couture, and Karl Lagerfeld gave her all the dresses at Chanel for free, all the furs for free, all the Chloe dresses for free. But at Saint Laurent, she paid a little. She had a discount. She paid at Saint Laurent. You see. So this is the way the world runs.
But did Saint Laurent not work the same way that...
Well, I don't think Saint Laurent gave clothes at couture for free. I know Paloma paid a little bit. In the beginning, before she got her inheritance, she could go borrow anything in Saint Laurent she wanted. When we were going off to the Anvil, she was going back to the Waldorf Astoria in her Saint Laurent couture dresses and going to sleep. But Lulu and I were running down to the Anvil, and she was borrowing the clothes. But then when she got the wealth, she was married in a Saint Laurent. I think she got her wedding suit for free. She was married in a day suit by Saint Laurent. In the evening, Karl made the wedding evening dress for her big wedding. And it was a very beautiful wedding. Then we danced at La Palace. So these were moments, and I did the Lulu La Falaise Country House. That was great. And one of my best shoots, I think, was Mika Erdogan's apartment, townhouse. She was great when they did August. They had the age issue. And Anna assigned me great stories. I had a great run with Anna Wintour. Anna Wintour's a great editor. I will never take away from her. She's a very formidable editor.
So I'm going to skip ahead just because we're running long.
And we got to let the people ask some questions. I want their questions too.
You.
That's what time it is, Abba. Is this a seminar? It's 8:46.
Well, I'm not letting you go. We got things to talk about. We're talking about Anna right now. And
I'm exhausted, but what time am I going to leave you?
Soon. I have another surprise. Just stay.
Okay. All right. Okay. Go ahead.
Trust me, you'll be happy.
Okay.
You talk about Anna, and it seems like you're of two minds when it comes to Anna Wintour. And you write about her as being this formidable ally and a friend, and treated you like family. And she was there for you when you needed her.
For interventions for my weight. When I got to Vogue, she got Mr. Newhouse to give me an interest-free loan to buy my grandmother a new house. The house has been paid for, now it's mine. She did everything, and she was a dear friend, and I went to all her family events. I went to her son's wedding. I didn't go to her daughter's wedding because then there was a fallout. And everything. I went to her mother's funeral. Her family couldn't get to the mother's funeral. When her mother passed away in England, I was the only person from Vogue, and her husband, David, said, "Andre, can you get to London? Because there's a blizzard and we can't get on a plane on the East Coast." I happened to have been in North Carolina and got to Florida and took a Virgin Airlines flight there and got to the crematorium on time. So I've gone through the many important moments of Anna Wintour. The birth of her children was important to her. And I know that she cared about me. I know she cared about me. I hope she cares about me. But in the power moments of her ascension into this great woman that she has become, this woman, of the most important woman in fashion, she has let people fall by the wayside, including people like Grace Carrington, one of the greatest editors ever. People who have been loyal to her sometimes get dismissed, I think. You know, people who've given their lives to Vogue.
Yes.
And I think that comes with the territory of the corporate brand. She is the global editor for all the brands, the magazines.
Yes.
That's a big responsibility. And I think there was no room for friendship in the end.
So, Andre, what happened?
Well, I described it in the book. I was given the red carpet interviews, and suddenly I was taken off the interviews in 2018. The last one I did was the Ray Kawakubo show, Comme des Garçons, because 2018. And with no explanation. I called up one day and I said, "Oh, normally they would call me up, weeks ahead and say, 'Oh, we want you to do the red carpet chats.' And we would go over the red carpet chats, who I would talk to. And it was all very much a team effort. It was a team effort of the live stream team, all that. And suddenly I called and I said, 'Am I doing the chats?' 'No, it's beneath you now.' And I thought, well, they decided it's beneath me. What does that mean?" That's the only explanation I had. Did I have another explanation? And I thought this was a very offensive way, and it had built up. I couldn't take it anymore. The way we can't take the brutal shootings of Rashid Brooks, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery. I was fed up. I thought, this is not the way you treat a loyal soldier in the trenches over decades. Someone had to come to me and say, if it was someone to say, "Andre, we're taking you off the red carpet chats because we have to go this way with this young influencer who has 2 million people on YouTube. And I just thought, no one ever explained it to me, and I thought this was very offensive to me. Yeah. And I decided, okay, well, after I went to the last Met Gala, I was invited always, which was the religious one. I thought, I'm never coming back to the Met Ball again. I didn't go to camp, and then this year was closed down because of COVID. I didn't go to camp, and I called up weeks before camp, and I said I declined to come. I didn't get a call from Anna Wintour. I called the office where you were supposed to call an RSVP. I said, I'm not coming to the camp dinner. No one called me to say why I was not coming, you know? Also, I did this wonderful opinion piece in the Washington Post.
Yes.
They called me and asked me on Beyonce in the cover when the young African-American photographer, 21 years old, had photographed Beyonce. And I was very proud of that piece. When the piece came out on a Sunday morning, I emailed it to Susan Plageman, who is the business head of Vogue. Susan Plageman loved the piece, and she congratulated me on the piece and said, I'm sending this to all the editors in Vogue, including Anna. Well, not one editor responded and sent me saying, wow, this is great, congratulations. That also affected me deeply. That was one of the reasons that happened. And so all these things just built up in me, and I decided in this book I had to tell the truth.
Yes, and you did. You named names this time, which was very.
I told the truth. I told the truth. I had to let the world know that in this world of Vogue, although it's very glamorous, that underneath the underbelly of it is disassociation, as she has made in a statement, intolerant behavior, to quote her, in her public statement, that she takes responsibility for intolerant behavior. Yes. Towards people of color and diversity. And as you've seen, the articles have been streaming about people have been exhausted by the racism in the Condé Nast building. Some man, the new CEO, gave his assistant the Elements of Style as a gift. 3 days later, she resigned. She was offended. And who wouldn't be offended if you got a job? You, of course. And she put it on his desk. You have to know you cannot do these things.
Yeah. But Andre, you called her a colonial broad.
Well, a colonial broad is, when I'm saying a colonial broad, it is because her Britishness is part of who she is. She is English. She is a British lady. She has been knighted by the Queen. That is part of who she is. Her DNA is that culture of class division, social strata, caste system. The imperial England, which was over India for centuries. You know, the English society is built on class strata. You've got the royals, the aristos, you've got the big houses, you've got the middle class, and you've got the lower classes. And there she is, this British lady. And when I said colonial, I meant the colonialism of England, which was about empire building.
Yes.
It's who she is.
Yes.
A broad, to me, she's big. She's a big broad.
Andre, I giggled about that for an entire day, and I'm going to leave that alone. I don't know why that tickled me so much, because the colonial broad, the use of the word broad in the colloquialism of it, I just, as I sent you that moment, that text in the morning, I said,
I know you said you called her a broad. I said, yes, I did. Of course I did. I claimed it. I said, of course they quoted me correctly. They quoted me correctly.
You know what? You talk about something in your book that I find profound. You talked about something called quiet activism.
Yes.
You never demanded, jumped up and down and pushed anything. You suggested, which is very different from the way that things are being done today. Talk a little bit about that.
For instance, I reflected recently. Mm-hmm. If Anna had come to me, and she did not ask me, in the past she'd asked me certain things. Mm-hmm. When they photographed LeBron James with Gisele Bündchen for the cover, yes. And it was a very controversial cover.
Yes.
Anna did not come to me and says, Andre, go down to the art department and look at this cover and tell me what you think. Had she asked me, I would have said, this cover will be offensive to Black people. Because there was a symbolism that LeBron James, if you could think about it, a man wrote, Mr. Butler, a MSNBC analyst, a former prosecutor, said, the suggestion of LeBron James and Gisele Bündchen in LeBron James' arm dribbling a basketball was a suggestion of King Kong and Fay Wray.
I thought it immediately when I saw it, immediately.
Anna did not even ask me my opinion about that, and I would have walked down the hall and told her what I thought of it, and then she could have done what she would have published it anyway. In the earlier days, if Grace Cardington had done a story with Mike Tyson and young Naomi Campbell, a Bruce Weber portfolio which took pages and pages and pages. And she would take me down the hall and she says, "Is this offensive?" I said, "No, this is not offensive." And then if Grace Carlton went and did a shoot in the Caribbeans or something, I said, "No, this is not offensive. No." But this is what I thought when that LeBron James, I felt, and I was there. I was at Vogue full time. I thought, maybe if she just said, "Andre, would you take a look at this? What is your opinion about it? How would you think how would Black people see this?" And looking at it again, I looked at it this afternoon, and I thought, this is King Kong. This is LeBron James.
Absolutely that. And I thought the same thing. But the idea of quiet activism, you even brought that up at the time during the shoot that you did with Naomi Campbell, Vanity Fair, which I thought was brilliant.
Oh, brilliant. That shoot was
the wind-inspired shoot.
That was brilliant. You know, Gone with the Wind, Hot has been pulled off HBO Max.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, it's been pulled off last week. They took that film off. That's going to come back. They must put it in the context. Because the way the Blacks are viewed in that film is offensive. Hattie McDaniel got the first Black Oscar, but they're idolizing, they're giving the stereotypes of the Black slaves being happy, even when they're in the big house. They couldn't have been happy. So I decided to do Naomi Campbell as Scarlett, and Manolo Blahnik as the gardener, and John Franco Ferre, the late John Franco Ferre, God rest his soul, may he rest in peace, as Hattie McDaniels. It was a spoof photographed by Karl Lagerfeld. The late Amy Spindler wrote a full-page critique of it. She critiqued it as fashion editor at the New York Times. I am so proud of the late Amy Spindler, who saw that this was an important piece, and Graydon Carter trusted me enough to publish that. I was in Paris. I said, "Graydon, I want to do a story with Karl Lagerfeld. We're flipping the switch. We're flipping the roles. The Blacks will be the aristos, and the whites will be the servants."
Incredible.
I didn't say slaves. And Amanda Harlick was a Civil War soldier, Amber. Valletta was a Civil War soldier. Manolo Blahnik was the gardener. And John Galliano was a house servant.
Did you have to coerce them into doing that?
No, it was, people loved me. They said, we love this idea. They all loved it because it was me and Karl Lagerfeld.
Oh, yeah.
And Manolo Blahnik came to Paris and photographed as the gardener. He wanted to be the gardener.
Incredible. I cannot get over that. And in the 90s, no doubt.
Yes, 94, I think. And Naomi Campbell was running up and down the steps. It was John Galliano's first couture show ever. He was, I think, 26, 27. Givenchy, he worked at Givenchy for a full year. And there was Naomi in this big old crinoline, big old strapless gown. It's in the book, the photograph's in the book. And also photographed in a Chanel dress, a gold dress, then the most expensive dress at Chanel.
Gorgeous. Yeah. And what is the most expensive dress? And how expensive is that?
That was $200,000 in 1994.
Oh my gosh. Naomi, she took you to Africa.
Yes.
And you tell a great story about that. And don't offend me tonight, sir. You're wearing Ghanaian fabric. You went to Lagos, Nigeria.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, Naomi had wanted to see. Naomi called me the day Karl Lagerfeld died. Oh. Anna Wintour called me also. Sally Singer called me and asked me to write something. Of course I did. I wrote it in 90 minutes on my iPad, on my iPhone, because my computer was off. I was in North Carolina. And then Anna called me and Naomi called me. And I was so impressed that Naomi called me because she doesn't call every day. I speak to Naomi about once every 3 months. I don't know where she is now.
Yeah.
And she says, I want to go with you. I want to take you to Africa. I want to take you to Africa, and you can show your film. And I said, okay, whatever. And I thought, well, that'll be sometime in the summer.
Yeah.
I'm sitting at Tina Brown's Women in the World Summit on the morning when Anna Wintour is being interviewed by Tina Brown at 9:00 in the morning. The phone's ringing. I said, Naomi, I can't talk on this phone. Tina Brown is about to interview Anna Wintour. You're coming to Africa with me, aren't you? I said, yes. Well, we're leaving Monday. I said, Naomi, I can't possibly get together Monday. What is wrong with you? I didn't know you would want to. Well, I'm leaving on Monday. So to make a long story short, I left by Thursday of that week. And I went to Lagos. We got to Lagos with my friend Chase back from Durham. I thought the airport was chaotic. I said, I've come here to die in a traffic jam in Lagos. I was praying. The car was air conditioned. There was no rhyme or reason to what the traffic was like. But then we got to this fabulous hotel and everything was fine. I showed my film. It was well received. I saw Naomi in a very ambassadorial light, and it was a beautiful trip. We ended up on Easter Sunday in the beautiful church in Lagos, the big, beautiful African church, which was so traditional and yet so Eurocentric, but Naomi was so beautifully received in the church. Everything was so spiritually aligned to what this trip was. And I will never forget that trip in Lagos.
Well, we have some friends on here all the way from Lagos right now.
Patience.
Patience and Moji from Tolowai. I'm wearing Tolowai right now. And this is a friend that you met on that trip.
Yeah. Hi, Patience. I can't see
in Lagos.
I can't see her, so I'm just saying hello. I don't see you.
Oh, I can see you.
Oh, there you are. Hi.
There's an entire page of you in a gorgeous agbada made by Patience Tolowai. Tell us about that.
Well, Patience and she came to see the film, and her daughter asked a question that you see her there. And then the film, she stood up and I wanted to meet her, and they came back to the hotel. I think we're leaving the next day or 2 days. And I said, Patience, and we got to talk, and it's this wonderful spiritual bonding. She started taking measurements. She started taking measurements in the hotel. I sent upstairs for a kaftan, and I left Lagos, and that's how our friendship began. And then suddenly I had beautiful agbadas sent to me in the middle of the summer that were just beautiful.
Andre, look.
They're wonderful. I still have them. Beautiful. I don't
see Naomi.
I tried to call you.
Hello, Naomi.
I couldn't get through on the Zoom.
Hi, darling.
How are you, bestseller? Huh?
Oh my God, Naomi, my God.
How are you doing?
How are you?
I'm good.
Have you read the book yet?
I haven't read the book yet.
You got to get an Audible. You got to get it. Where are you? That looks so foreign. It's a hotel.
No, I'm in LA at home.
Well, you got to get the Audible. You got to hear me reading the book.
I know, but I haven't yet. I'll explain to you why, but I will.
Okay. Listen, I'm so happy to see you. What a great thing you've organized, Abba. My God.
Naomi,
have you had a great time?
Fighting through the technical.
I'm having a great time. We've been on for 2 hours. We've been on for 2 hours.
Andre, I was stalling you for this very special surprise. She's been trying to get in for the last 20 minutes.
It's been very difficult to get through. I'm not technical at all. It's like really difficult for me. I'm learning though. I'm learning.
Almost, Naomi. Happy 50th birthday.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
You were absolutely gorgeous.
And you're forever young. And it's great.
Congratulations, Andre, on your book. I'm very proud of you. I'm very happy for you.
Thank you. Thank you. So happy to see you.
You too. I'll call you tomorrow.
Okay, love you.
In the morning.
All right, darling, love you.
All right, I love you too. Bye-bye, lovely. Bye-bye.
Patience, hi, Patience, back to Patience. Where's Patience?
Patience will be back in a moment. Bye, Naomi. Thank you.
And Patience came to New York and went to my church, the Abyssinian Baptist Church.
Yes, we really miss it.
And we had a wonderful dinner at Majorelle. Remember you had this dinner at Majorelle? That was your friend from Ghana? Was she from Ghana, the lady?
Yes, Irene.
Miss Irene Akufo-Addo.
Yes, she sends her greetings.
Yes. So I'm not wearing my bottoms because they're in the dry cleaners at Madame Paulette. Madame Paulette, excuse me. It's closed because of the COVID. I can't get them out of the dry cleaners.
Oh my God.
That's the problem. It's too warm. I'm sure it's too warm to wear them now.
No, but I mean, no. I'm talking the ones you made the first ones, the ones that are broderie anglaise.
Yes,
the black one and the white one, they're in the dry cleaners.
Yeah, Andre, let me just say something.
Yes.
I want to thank God for bringing you into our life.
Oh, thank you.
To represent us, to really open the door for us Africans.
Yes, thank you.
For speaking up, for really paving the way. You don't even know the magnitude of what you've done for our race.
Thank you, thank you.
So we're so privileged to know you.
And you see me in the book. Did you have my book yet?
No, the book is in England. You know, you sent it to my son in England.
Oh yes, but there's a picture of me in the book right at the bottom.
Yes.
There's a picture.
I didn't want anything to go wrong.
Well, we got some ebooks, so it's on our iPad.
I have read it though.
Good.
I've read it.
Absolutely, Andre. I was reading the book, and I turned the page, and there you were, looking like regal.
Regal.
And I died, and I immediately called them. It was like the middle of the night. I said, "Patience, Moji, you're gonna die when you see that."
Hold the book up and show the picture of the book. Abba, hold the book up and show the page.
Okay, let me get.
Show it to patient.
So guys, the beauty of this story is Andre and Naomi went off to Lagos, and they met, as he said, and met Patience and Moji. And he immediately sent them to me. And so we have now started a lifelong partnership and a friendship. And Andre, I'm grateful for that.
There I am. Look, in the book. Whole page.
Made just for you, Andre. And so special.
Thank you so much. And my name is in your book. I mean, I will cherish it for the rest of my life.
And I thank you for introducing us, and we will cherish each other. And for my glorious kaftan that I'm wearing today.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, Andre, the lingerie is really looking good.
Good. Well, I'll send it to me. Send it to me on emails, please.
I will do that, yes.
My lingerie has just arrived by DHL. I just didn't want to assault you all and wear it.
That's great, your kaftan, Abba.
I want to thank you, Patience and Moji. I know it's very, very late, but we thank you for coming on and honoring Andre. We all love you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Big love, Moji. Patience, thank you.
Bye for now.
We've gone over, and I could stay and talk to you for 6 hours, but I know you're sick of me by now, but I love you, Andre.
I'm not sick of you. I want the questions. You got to let the people have questions.
I have 45 questions, Andre.
But we're not going to do 45. We can do 20.
Okay. I'm going to start with this one. In the book, you say that Betty Cottrell was a great friend of yours.
Yes.
And she was Yves Saint Laurent's fit model, but she was also his muse and his alter ego.
Yes.
You say in the book that Yves Saint Laurent wanted to be Betty Cottrell. Is Anna Wintour your alter ego?
Oh, is that a question from one of the audience members?
It came.
Anna Wintour is not my alter ego. I do not want to be Anna Wintour. Point blank, period.
All right, with a T. Period with a T, good people. Okay, Pascal asked the question, how does this current Black Lives Matter movement impact the industry? Right now, it is finally time for the fashion industry to tackle that elephant in the room, race and equity.
It's very important. It's in time to tackle that elephant in the room in every industry. And these young new people, these millennials, walking the streets, protesting, they will affect every asset of our society. Every industry, politics, science, literature, arts, dance, theater, poetry, everything will be affected by what is going on in the world today. The world is changing. When you realize we're in the 20th day of protest, globally, not just America, but globally, Australia and Berlin, London, they're tearing down the statues of Mr. Rhodes. You realize that this is a movement. This is the world. This is a movement of the world, and change is going to come.
Yes, yes. So another question has come along those lines from Jennifer Lee Orihori, and she says, what do you believe the roles of fashion designers, executives, and communications people should be, if any, in the current activism efforts?
They have to move. Whatever you can do, create change in some way or form. Roles, you have to find a way to have your voice matter, whether it's marching or whether it's creating change within the industry of designer or retailer or a digital platform artist, influencer. Everyone must be focused on getting systemic racism erased. It's not going to end this year. It's not going to end next year, but we must fight and be focused.
Yes.
So that Black men do not walk out of the house afraid they may not come home.
Wow. So I have an anonymous question here. As a former Condé Nast employee, a fashion editor at Condé Nast Traveler, I witnessed so much unfair treatment for not just myself, but specifically higher ranking people among the mastheads, my boss included. Based on the current circumstances and recent bad press, do you think that Condé Nast is more, specifically Anna Wintour, will weather all of the mistreatment and prejudice of others, specifically people of color? Sorry, that was a bit convoluted, but that was the question. Do you think that Anna Wintour will weather all of the mistreatment and prejudice of others, or weather that storm, I think she means?
I think the storm, she will survive the gale storm. Mm-hmm. She will survive the tsunami because she's a very clever businesswoman. Mm-hmm. Business as usual. She's very, very smart about maintaining her power base. Mm-hmm. I think that the mortal storm, this is not the mortal storm for her. This is really a phase, and she will work overnight. She will burn the midnight candles to make sure she survives.
Okay, that is very interesting. We're all watching with popcorn and bated breath. Know that. Okay. Andre, you have lived an illustrious life, and now you say in the book that you live alone in upstate New York. Is there anything that you would have done differently or changed in your career?
Oh, absolutely.
Like what?
I regret that I never had a long-lasting relationship. I regret that I did not adopt a child. I regret not having brothers and sisters. I regret very much, although I have great friends like Beth Ann, Alexis, Janice. These are my three great principal Black friends. Mm-hmm. I speak to Alexis and Janice more than I speak to Beth Ann, because Beth Ann is a nomadic world traveler, so sometimes she's like Naomi. Naomi is my good friend, but Beth Ann, Alexis, and Janice are the triumvirates that keep me balanced. I speak to Sandra Bernard every day. Mm-hmm. So I regret, and these people have relationships. Because of the sexual abuse I suffered in my childhood, I never knew how to trust intimacy or have relationships. And as I said, in those days, you did not have Black therapists. Black people did not go to shrinks. Mm-hmm. Black people too busy trying to survive. Black people that I know, we didn't come from affluent backgrounds. We're not going to their therapist once a week. Yeah. But I survived. I have survived. But I would love to have had, I don't even have a pet. But sometimes I get lonely. But now with the success of this book,
yes,
I feel that I'm calm, and I can appreciate my success through this book. I can sit on the porch and reflect. As I've invited Beth Ann, she can just come in like the old people. I remember how my grandmother and her sisters just sit on the porch on an afternoon and just sit there and talk. And sit on the porch is a great privilege. Absolutely. To be able to look at nature. So this is what I'm getting to appreciate more and more every day in the COVID.
Yes.
I would have changed it, and I would long to have had a relationship that I didn't have. I got a letter from Jacqueline de Riebe.
Yes.
Comtesse de Riebe sent me an overnight Federal Express letter.
Okay.
He read the book in Paris. And do you know who Jacqueline de Riebe is?
Tell us, for everyone here.
Jacqueline de Riebe is the equivalent, almost, and I don't want to say this with offense, she's almost like the modern day Marie Antoinette without the destiny.
Okay. A
very wealthy French lady who is of great privilege. She has great style. She has great homes, and she's incredible. She sent me a letter because I put on the best dress list. Well, she deserved it. I mean, she would go to Saint Laurent, and if she loved the dress, she had one dress in her exhibit. She ordered it 3 times. She had the same dress, the same shape. She ordered it in blue, like you're wearing, apricot, and then peach or something. And so Jacqueline de Riebe has always been an inspiration to the world of fashion and style. She was a great inspiration to Yves Saint Laurent. Mm-hmm. She did not wear Chanel a lot, but she did wear a lot of Dior and Saint Laurent. And Valentino. And she sent me this letter. I screamed when I got the letter. It was a blessing. Carolyn Herrera, they loved the book. Ronaldo and Carolyn Herrera loved the book. Mm-hmm. Old dear friends. I've known them since I was at Interview magazine. We used to also go to Studio 54 too. They used to be in the 54 Banquettes. Pictures of Carolyn Herrera with her beautiful halter dresses on, glamorous as ever. These are people who were inspirational to me. So I do have great friends. Dion von Furstenberg is one of my dearest friends. Beth Ann, who's looking fabulous with the little pearls and the gray sweater.
Tony Goodman and Wendy are here. They all love you.
All my friends are here.
Immediately to my invitation.
And Naomi, of course, that you got Naomi is a
miss it. So let me ask you something. Someone is asking, Chandra Lynn Bell is asking, Andre, do you see haute couture shows and fashion shows surviving post-COVID? And which houses do you think will become victims of the pandemic?
I don't think any houses will become victims of the pandemic. I think people will become clever and they will have presentations that will either be digital or they will be smaller presentations. Mm-hmm. I do think that they will have to look at the world another way. I don't think the mega show is perhaps going the way of being passed. Okay. And when I say the mega show, the big $4 million shows, mm-hmm. I think the shows are going to be more intimate, smaller. Mm-hmm. I think the big houses will always survive. Valentino, Dior, Chanel. No, I don't see houses going by the way of the wayside. No. Okay. There's always going to be fashion, and people are going to love fashion, always.
Okay. Cassandra asked the question, I want to ask you what advice you have for young professionals today wanting to stand out and forging a path in today's fashion industry.
Find your distinctive look and stay with it. When I was young, as Beth Ann said, I had the Eagle Scout. I used to wear khaki Bermudas and luxurious cashmere socks from Ralph Lauren and Belgian slippers and tweed sport coats and Turnbull and Astor shirts. Now, why was I wearing Bermuda shorts and going to work?
Yeah.
Because I stood out and because I was skinny and I could wear it and I loved it. And this was a uniform for me. Also, I couldn't afford big custom-made suits then until I got to Paris. So there are many beautiful photographs of me in Bermuda shorts standing with Marina Schiano. And I'd forgotten that. But then when I was so young, I was so bold. And when just find your look.
Yeah.
You could even have green hair.
Oh.
If you want to have green hair, make that a statement.
Okay.
Or green nails. Or maybe you wear white shoes, you know. White shoes are considered a no-no after September. But make that your signature. Wear always white shoes, white stilettos with everything.
You guys heard that here from the ANDRÉ Leon-Talley. Henry Edwards asked the question, why did it take 30 years for another Black editor?
Because progress is slow. And the world was slow. Edward Enninful became that editor-in-chief of British Vogue. Now he's paved the way for Samira at Harper's Bazaar, the first Black woman to be editor-in-chief. And it's a slow progress. It's a slow burn. People are afraid. They are afraid of the unknown. Fortunately, Ronnie Newhouse and Jonathan Newhouse had faith in Edward Enninful and took the dare, and look how great it's turned out.
Absolutely.
And hopefully they have taken a great, bold risk with Samira, who is a beautiful woman. She was also Grace Coddington's assistant at Vogue. She's had the best training from Grace Coddington. Therefore, she's now the editor-in-chief of, she's the future.
It's incredible to see. But she earned it, Andre.
Oh, she earned it. She earned it.
I posted something on my Facebook last week, and I mean it from my heart, that I'm grateful for all of this change that is happening, and it's happening very rapidly. Yeah. But I'm not looking for people to just fill quotas with Black people just because right now you need to do it. There's so many people who have worked and worked and worked and are incredible at what they do. Yes. I'm hoping that as a result of this and opening up doors, that we're actually going to get the best of the best talent, period. Not just because we're filling some kind of quota of action in fashion.
Samira earned it and will be brilliant in her job. And she didn't get the job for her looks. As Judge Judy said, they don't keep me here for my looks, they keep me here because I'm smart. Samira earned it. I earned it. Edward earned it. Edward was knighted by the Queen before he ever got the job as British editor-in-chief. He was OBE before he became editor-in-chief.
Yes.
He earned it.
So Andre, I'm hoping that all of this comes together because we have so much more to talk about that you didn't even get to cover in the book. And I'm hoping for another book because there's so much more to be told. But I want to see another film. Andre.
Well, I'm in talks with film people. I'm in talks.
People, we want to see a film. But
I'm in talks. But I'm in talks this week. Where 3 people were turned down. I'm in talks with Jane Rosenthal of Tribeca Films.
Okay.
I'm in talk about a series based on the book and my life, the first memoir. Okay. And I've had serious talks since the book came out, and we are deeply considering this film.
I can't wait.
Netflix turned me down because they said they had the Versailles project with Ava. But serious people, and I'm in talk with a big filmmaker. I can't say his name because we just started our talks. But I am in deep conversations, and my biggest ally is Jane Rosenthal of Tribeca Film. I want to work with her. And I want to work with Robert De Niro.
Woo! Okay, wait. Now here's my question for you, Andre. Who would play you in the film? You better not say Robert De Niro.
Just a minute. Bob, come on.
Who would play you in a feature film?
Listen to me. Who would play me in a feature film would be Will Smith.
Ooh!
And Robert De Niro. My dream would be Karl Lagerfeld. Can you imagine Robert De Niro? Lagerfeld? Can you imagine? I said to Jane, do you think he would? He says, what? It's a brilliant idea. Can't you see him, that great actor with 2 Oscars playing Karl Lagerfeld? He's got the gray hair. He's got the look. Oh, I hope this will be one day. I'm giving you a scoop.
You gave me scoop, and I never thought that you would choose those 2, but that's brilliant.
Yeah, Will Smith. Of course I choose Will Smith. Oh, please. I'm going to have a white man play me.
I didn't say that. I just said who.
You better not say Robert De Niro. Of course not. Go on.
Andre, I love you for spending so much time. 2 hours, people. Before he gets sick of me, I'm going to thank you profusely.
I thank you for the love. I thank you for your brilliance. I thank you for putting together this wonderful event and having these surprise guests. This is unique and unprecedented. No one has ever done this. We have made history with Zoom in the COVID. You have pulled out the best of the best. Tawny, Wendy, Beth Ann, and Naomi, Patience, and her daughter Moji. You yourself, it all comes from your mind, and you deserve all the praise. And I want to thank you for 2 hours and 22 minutes of wonder.
2 hours and 22 minutes. We give glory to God first.
Glory to God. And thank you, Abba. You've been exceptional.
And thank you, my husband, for bringing the charger. Because we almost
That's what he wanted, the charger.
He brought the charger because my computer even ran out of juice.
Well, listen, I want to thank you so much. This has been a wonderful evening. And to all the audience members who participated, I hope you enjoyed it because it was truly, truly wonderful and marvelous and unique. This was a celebration of a life, an appreciation of the people who've been in my life, Beth Ann, Naomi, Wendy, Tawny, and Patience, and Moji. It's just been exceptional. And Abba, of course, Abba.
Love you.
Love. God bless.
Love you, sir. Get some rest. And
God bless.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone, for joining us.
God bless you. Thank you so much for this.
Take care, Andre.
Love you.
I love you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.